Hi, my name is John Bileski. I'm a anthropologist of religion and a continuing lecturer at the University of California, San Diego. My specialty is global Christianity and also American Christianity. And I'm going to go and do what you would expect someone whose first book was on Pentecostal and charismatic Christianity in Southern California to do, which is have an unboxing video of a tarot deck? Before we begin, let's have a little bit of expectation management here. I don't watch unboxing videos. I am not familiar with the genre. So there might be certain obligatory beats, there might be some kind of payoff that serves as the culmination of an unboxing video, and I'm afraid I can't deliver that. If that's what you're here for, I am sure somewhere on YouTube right now someone is opening some kind of electronic device, and I encourage you to go and look at that. My feelings, they won't be hurt. The second thing, some of you may be excited when you hear the word tarot. Again, you might want to restrain yourself a bit. I'm a social scientist. I am particularly bereft when it comes to mystic wisdom. I am still in the learning stages about various elements of Western esotericism, and I certainly have no occult capacity. So prepare to be disappointed if those are any of the interests that you have here. But I can say that what I am lacking, I'd like to think that what I'm going to be opening right now is going to be kind of compelling. And what I'm going to be opening right now is the Triumph's Pip Parade Tarot. And it's a collaboration by Baruch Ghazal and Scott Toxic, who previously produced the Triumph's Tarot Deck. You may be wondering, why is someone who anthropologically studies Christianity opening tarot decks, let alone being excited about it enough to go and make a video? Well, here's the story in a nutshell. About 7 or 8 years ago, I was at the University of Edinburgh, and I discovered there was an organization called the Mormon Transhumanist Association. And I became fascinated. It wasn't originally a ethnographic or anthropological or even academic interest. It was sort of a what the heck kind of interest that was driving me. Eventually, though, as I learned more and more, and I began to go and meet some Mormon transhumanists, I decided that this was something that was worthy of academic attention. And it eventually culminated in this book from Fordham University Press, Machines for Making Gods, Mormonism, Transhumanism, and Worlds Without End. A few things happened during the process of writing the book. One was I became academically very interested in the borderlands of the category of religion. That is, what happens, where is it, what's constituted, what's enabled, and what's foreclosed, where you have those spaces where religion and categories, elements, practices are generally considered to be non-religion coincide. The other thing that happened to me is I became deeply interested in Mormonism. By Mormonism, I mean, well, the restored gospel movement. I'm specifically interested in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which is not to say that I'm not uninterested in other elements, but that's where my main focus has been. And again, before we even get anywhere, another rabbit trail. I am going to be using the word Mormon. I'm going to be using the word Mormon a lot. As some of you watching this video may be aware, the current attitude of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is that they be referred to as, well, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the appellation Mormon, even though it had been traditionally used for, well, almost since the beginning of the movement, is something they discourage. I believe that each use of the phrase is considered, at least by the current president of the church, to be a victory for Satan. It's not my intention to sort of run up the scoreboard for the devil, but I have to say, because many of my interlocutors still use the word Mormon, and some feel deeply attached to the word Mormon, I feel obliged, because I am representing them and not the official institutional church, to use that appellation. So I'm really sorry if I am conveying any offense. Also, this would be a much longer video if I said the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints instead of Mormon every time. Anyhow, back to what might pass as the single red thread running through this video. After I did my work on Mormon transhumanism, and by the way, for those of you who don't know what transhumanism is, it is the idea that near future technology will so change the human condition that we overcome our species nature, that we become something more than human. I found out that there were other forms of Mormonism that also touched on the borderland between religion and non-religion. And one of those forms is magic and the Western esoteric condition. This was different, though, than Mormon transhumanism. Mormon transhumanists feel that technology can go and assist, or perhaps even be the main means through which one achieves theosis. That is the becoming divine, the becoming God. And this, of course, is one of the promises that you have in the Mormon eschatological vision, the plan of salvation as it's referred to. But this is a hope about the future. Mormon interest in magic is a concern for and a caring about the past. And this is because Joseph Smith had a very particular relationship with magic. Before he became the American prophet, he was a scryer. He would use seer stones to look for treasure underground in upstate New York, and I believe parts of Vermont, though, again, I'm doing this video on the fly, so excuse me if I'm wrong. Even afterwards, once he discovered the Book of Mormon, or confabulated it, you can follow either camp. This video is taking no stance. But once the Book of Mormon came into being and the church was founded, Joseph Smith continued to be interested in what we might want to call the occult or the Western esoteric. He, for instance, became a Mason, and certain elements of Masonry were integrated into the religion, and this is particularly evident if you take a look at various temple rituals, such as the endowment, a ritual where one is shown various signs and tokens that are useful in the afterlife. And there's also other things, of course. When Joseph Smith died, he had what was called the Jupiter talisman on him. This is a reproduction of it. There were also various magical parchments that were in the possession of the Smith family. And this is just a light sketch. If you're interested in Joseph Smith and his relation to magic and how it may have shaped elements of early Mormonism, I would like to recommend Early Mormonism and the Magic Worldview by D. Michael Quinn. It is considered to be the text of record. And there are other books subsequent to it that are also worthy. I may post some bibliographic information into the show notes. If I do, at least a few of those books will be mentioned there. But of course, I'm not a historian. I haven't been trained as one. I haven't done the archive work. I'm, as an anthropologist, interested in people I can speak to, which means I am interested in my contemporaries. And there are contemporary Mormons that are interested in magic. Why is a complicated reason, and I don't think one reason can be given that will explain every person's interest in or turning to or desire for magic. Some are interested because of a deep concern for the past. Others are trying to go and expand their vision and understanding of what Mormonism can be, and some are former saints who have left the church but still have an emotional connection to it, and an interest in Mormon magic is a way to go and still participate and think about and be a part of aspects of Mormonism without having to go and be a member of the church. One of the things that I've discovered that surprised me is that among contemporary Mormons there is a lively interest in tarot. Several Mormons and former Mormons use tarot decks. Some have established businesses as tarot deck readers. But what we're going to be talking about today are those who have produced tarot decks that are specifically Mormon themed, or, in the case of what we're going to be looking at today, have Mormon elements contained within them. You may be surprised to find out that there are Mormon tarot decks. Well, there are. One, for instance, is Josh Bard's deck. This is something that is still in process, but if you subscribe to his Patreon, and I do, and I think it's actually well worth the money, you can see him producing month by month each card in the deck, and it is not traditional tarot decks, but they are reimaginings that focus on Mormon history. An example, for instance, is that the Fool card, which, for those of you who know something about tarot, doesn't actually mean the Fool, but a kind of innocence or openness, depicts a young Joseph Smith in upstate New York. But that's not the only deck that is concerned with Mormon history or is centered around the biography of Joseph Smith. There is, for instance, the Joseph Smith Tarot Deck, and this is created by Cheryl Bruno, a independent scholar and member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She's also a co-author of a book that I will have occasion to mention later on when I get to the meat of things and actually unbox the card deck. Here is Cheryl Bruno's explanatory booklet. It's traditional in tarot decks for there to be an explanatory booklet of some kind so that neophytes can have some success in reading the deck. As you can see, she too has Joseph Smith as the Fool for the first card, though I can say this is something that looks quite different, both in art style and in the various symbolic elements, than Josh Bard's deck. And it goes on. There's various figures from Mormon history. I go into this in detail, but this is an unboxing video and not a general essay on Mormon Tarot. If you are interested in Cheryl Bruno's deck, I believe that it is not available anymore. I believe that they have all been sold. I don't know if there's going to be another printing, but at this moment, I think they are a collector's item. This brings us to the third explicitly Mormon Tarot deck that I am aware of, at least, which is by Barak Azal-Meili, who, if you can remember all the way back from the beginning of the video, is the creator of the deck that we will actually have an unboxing of. And this deck is the Mormon Endowment Tarot. Again, you could have a quite lengthy video about this deck alone. You could have a nice academic essay about this deck, and maybe someday I will write that essay. But I simply want to point out that this is someone who has a relationship to Mormonism, who knows about its esoteric practice, because, of course, as I previously mentioned, the endowment is a initiatory temple practice that is replete with Masonic symbolism. But again, this is not the only tarot deck that has been produced by Barak Azal-Meili. So what we're looking at today is the Triumph's Pip Parade Tarot, which is a collaboration between Barak Azal-Meili and a underground Salt Lake City area artist who goes by the Namda art of Scott Toxic. I'm going to try to open this. You can watch me struggle with it comedically. This is called good content, right? We're finally getting somewhere. This may be what passes for victory for me today. And let me open it up. Technically, this is actually the third deck. Prior to this, Scott Toxic and Barak Azal-Meili created the Triumph's Tarot deck. The Triumph's Tarot deck was a reimagining of the Thoth Tarot that was a collaboration between Aleister Crowley and an artist who is escaping my mind right now. Remember, I am not an expert in Western esotericism. And this deck received a lot of critical acclaim and interest in the Tarot community. And so rather than just deal with the major arcana, which is the face cards that everyone's familiar with, the Fool, the Hierophant, the World, the Hanging Man, Death, the Tower, and so on, they produced a whole and complete deck. Now, the Pip Parade Triumph's deck may differ from tarot decks that you are familiar with if you have seen tarot. Most tarot in the current moment is variations on the Rider-Waite deck, which was a late 19th, early 20th century deck that was associated with the Golden Dawn. One of the innovations of the Rider-Waite deck is that there is a set of cards called the Minor Arcana. They're broken up into suits, much like regular playing cards: cups, pentacles, suit of swords, wands. Sometimes different terms are used, but basically that's how things are organized. And each one of these is numbered 1 on up, and they of course culminate in some kind of knight or esquire, prince, a queen, and a king, and they all have pictorial representations. Here's an example of those of you who aren't familiar with. This again is a reproduction of the Rider-Waite deck. This is the Six of Pentacles from the Suit of Pentacles, and as you see, there's an image there with various symbolic elements. Another example is here, the Ace of Swords, and I am basically drawing these at random. The Seventh of Swords, and so on and so on and so on. And it's quite beautiful, and a lot of people find this to be a powerful and compelling deck. The problem is that this was a break from traditional tarot. Prior to the Rider-Waite deck, tarot decks did not have images in what you might want to call the Minor Arcana, except of course for those cards that represented specific face cards like the Queen or the King. This is from the Tarot of Marseille. Again, this is a reproduction, of course. And you can see that once you go past the Major Arcana, there is some really beautiful imagery, but there is none of the sort of pictorial representation that one finds in the Rider-Waite deck. And some people who are interested in tarot find the Rider-Waite deck problematic because those images came from nowhere. They were produced solely by the creators of the deck working collaboration, and it's not clear what they were building on. There is an incorporation of a lot of familiar occult symbolism in the Rider-Waite deck, but that doesn't mean that it has anything to do with the earlier tarot decks that people are familiar with. Quickly, here's another example. This is from the Atelier Tarot deck, which was produced by Jean-Baptiste Elite. I pronounced that wrong. I can live with myself for doing that. He was a 19th century French occultist, and he is one of the people who did the most to go and establish tarot. And again, the Minor Arcana but again, that does not have the symbolic representations that were first initiated by the Rider-Waite deck. Okay, so you're probably thinking right now, you have shown us every deck but the one that you promised to show us, and the one that is central to the unboxing video. Well, here it is. I have not looked at it yet. This is really lovely, at least to my eyes. And again, this is just based on aesthetics. I'm not making any kind of informed statement about its meaning. There are, this is the Major Arcana. These, again, are reimaginings of the Thoth Tarot Deck produced by Aleister Crowley. So it leans more on those elements symbolically, but they are reimagined. Let me, I believe this is the High Priestess card. Well, let me just go through this. Here's one that's particularly fetching. Here we have the Tower. That's a very famous, very iconic tarot deck, and you can see how it is represented here. Again, with a deck this rich, there are going to be all sorts of elements and aspects of it that have esoteric meanings. There's just a few I found, and by found I mean I actually reached down and communicated with the creator of the deck, well, one of the creators, and I've been informed about certain Mormon Easter eggs. For instance, this is the card the Sun, and what we have here is Hill Cumorah, which is the hill that Joseph Smith claims to have found the golden plates that contained engravings that he translated into the Book of Mormon. There are elements in this deck, though, that, why not explicitly Mormon, call out to elements of Masonry, and as previously stated, Masonry was quite influential to Joseph Smith. To repeat myself, he was a Mason who was initiated to the highest degree, and many elements of temple ritual have striking similarities to Masonic initiation rites. If you're curious about this Masonic Mormon connection, I'd like to just make a recommendation. Here is a new book from Crawford Press, Method Infinite, Freemasonry and the Mormon Restoration. It is by Cheryl Bruno, the same creator of the Joseph Smith Tarot, Joe Steve Swick III, and Dr. Nicholas Latursky. And the reason I'm simply showing you a Kindle version is because this book, even though it is just recently out, I mean, I don't think it's even been out a month, is, I believe, already sold out. It is very hard to go and get a physical copy. I tried ordering one through a familiar online retailer that has a faux interest in female warriors, and they could not deliver, even though I had pre-ordered it months and months and months ago, because there's been such a run on it. So what are these Masonic elements? Well, the all-seeing eye is a theme that comes up again and again and again. In fact, it's so prevalent that it would be exhaustive to go and identify every moment. This card here, which is the Universe, it features a double-headed ego, which is associated with the 33rd degree of Masonry. I am told, not having been initiated into Masonry at all, but it came from a reliable source. Here is something else. This is the High Priestess card, and these are the twin pillars of the temple, Boaz and Joachim, which are important Masonic symbols, and I believe are elements of various rites in Masonic initiation. And here we get to the last element, the Minor Arcana. Again, this is done in the style that harkens back to the traditional Tarot. And I think these are actually rather striking. I, again, am not a scholar of Tarot, as is probably painfully evident in this video, but I do like the way that it brings us back to the pre-Rider-Waite deck, even if it has one foot in the post-Rider deck world, because the major arcana are reimaginings of the Thoth Tarot by Aleister Crowley. And here we have the Courts card. This is the, presumably, King, Queen, the Prince or Knight, and the Princess or Page. And there's some kind of indeterminacy there, because there's different sets of court cards between the traditional, which goes King, Queen, Knight, Page, and the Thoth deck, which goes Knight, Queen, Prince, Princess. And I believe I just may have actually mislabeled some of the material I just spoke at before, but I told you to go and control your expectations early. And so I regret the inaccuracies. I apologize for the inaccuracies, but I don't feel sorry for them. I should also mention parenthetically that these cards come with a smaller deck that is just the major arcana, and I believe that the major deck, well, oftentimes used for meditation, or sometimes actually just playing card games, because that is one of the purposes that tarot decks are used for, and that is something that is often forgotten in the contemporary moment. But I believe that there is just this deck that's exclusively for cartomancy. The major thing really is that two things. The category between religion and non-religion is fascinating and complex and multifarious, containing all sorts of things that serve to surprise. The other thing is that there is a Masonic / Western esoteric / occult strain, certainly in historical Mormonism, and as evidenced today by the various tarot decks in the contemporary moment. And finally, I just wanted to go and show this deck because I knew in advance from seeing pictures of it that it would be visually striking. Anyhow, I thank you for your patience in watching this video. I have been John Bolesky, and thank you for your time. And afterwards, I remembered, after having filmed and edited this video, that the pronouns for Baruch Gazal Lee are they, theirs, as are the pronouns for Dr. Kursky. I believe I have honored those preferences, but I may have slipped up once or twice. When you refer to these two individuals, please honor those preferences, unlike me, who may have made a mistake here or there. Thank you.